With Lululemon, the real gift happens when your holiday checklist is complete. When you give them the coziest scuba matching set, you both get moments like this. And this. And this. This holiday, Lululemon makes it easy to find last-minute gifts that bring presents. Open the moment. Shop now at Lululemon.com.
Looking for a great non-alcoholic beer?
Yeah.
Try Athletic Brewing Co.
One that actually
tastes great? It's athletic.
Or that has a
variety of styles? It's athletic.
Or
that's award-winning and seemingly everywhere? It's athletic. Just ask for it.
Okay. Can I get an athletic?
Sure can. The rest of you, go to askforathletic.com and find the #1 non-alcoholic beer brand in the U.S. at a retailer today. Near Beer.
Over the last 16 years, the Subaru Share the Love event has supported charities like the ASPCA, Make-A-Wish, Meals on Wheels America, and the National Park Foundation. When you buy or lease a new Subaru from now until January 2nd, Subaru and its retailers will donate a minimum of $300 to charity. Support a great cause today at Subaru.com/share.
This episode contains subject matter that some listeners might find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. The chairs scrape across the worn floor. Journalists cram into uncomfortable chairs. Cameras, notepads, and microphones rest in their laps. Some are holding cups of takeaway coffee. Next to them sit farmers, retirees, factory workers, all sorts of people from Delphi who have come here on their time off. On the stage in front of them, the last cables are being laid, while police officers begin to line up behind the podium in their pressed beige shirts and wide hats. It's April 22nd, 2019. After nearly 2 years without any updates, the police in Delphi have called a press conference. It concerns the double murder of Abby Williams and Libby German. The case is still open. The investigation is moving forward at its usual pace, and the murderer is still at large. But soon, the head of the Indiana State Police steps up to the podium. His name is Doug Carter, and he's been one of the people responsible for the case from the very beginning. You'll remember him from another press conference a couple of years earlier, which we heard in the previous episode.
I got to say to the Delphi community how grateful I am. You inspire people that you don't even understand, and you don't even understand why.
He is very determined that justice should be served in this case. And now, he tells all the eager people in the uncomfortable chairs that the police finally have more information to share.
Information is being released today is the result of literally thousands and thousands of hours of extraordinary investigative efforts by Delphi, Carroll County, the FBI, the Indiana State Police, and countless other agencies.
To me, the biggest thing about this is when they released additional portions of the audio recording and video.
This is author Brian Whitney. He has followed the Delphi case for many years and written a book about it. Now he's explaining more about the information the police released during the press conference.
Now you get to see the guy walking on the bridge, as opposed to just a still photo. And then even this walk, he's got a gate, that looks kind of messed up. And maybe that's proof that there's something up with him. Maybe he's a little drunk. Maybe he's got something wrong with his legs, but he's also on some creepy tall bridge. So you could just be being really careful, how he sets his feet.
In a short, looped video clip, the assembled audience watch as Bridge Guy moves. And he walks a bit, strangely, almost like he's drunk. Or maybe it's just difficult to walk on that old, narrow bridge. Of course, watching a video like this one, of someone who may have murdered 2 young girls, can stir up a lot of emotions. And it certainly does for Indiana State Police Chief Doug Carter. As you'll hear, he's very emotional throughout his entire speech.
To the murderer, I believe you have just a little bit of a conscience left. And I can assure you that how you left them in that woods is not what they're experiencing today.
He was very, very emotional. He looked like he was near tears the whole time. Other times he looked very angry.
Carter turns directly to the perpetrator and seems to hint that the girls were left in a very conspicuous way out in the woods. But besides showing the short clip where Bridge Guy is moving, there's another piece of news during the press conference. The police are now going to follow a new lead in their investigation. Many have probably assumed the police would have tested new leads long ago. After all, it's been 2 years without any arrests. But no one in the room expects what they're about to hear. Namely, that there is a new composite sketch. The small gathering of people in the room are stunned. What does this mean? Are they looking for another person? Or is this new sketch meant to completely replace the previous one? And if so, have they found new witnesses? Or are there multiple images of the suspect? Something must have surfaced. How else could they have come up with this new image?
During the course of this investigation, we have concluded the first sketch released will become secondary as of today. The result of the new information and intelligence over time leads us to believe the sketch, which you will see shortly, is the person responsible for the murders of these 2 little girls.
Yes, Carter clarifies that the new image takes precedence over the old one, and that it has been created with the help of new information. But he doesn't specify what kind of information it is. Other than that, not many questions are cleared up during this press conference.
And the second sketch looks like some, 165-pound, 19-year-old kid. To me, when I look at the photo on the bridge versus that sketch, I'm like, well, this is an entirely different guy. Like, where did they even get this? Was this a different guy than the one they have the photo of on the bridge?
As you may remember, the first composite sketch shows a middle-aged man with broad cheeks, a fleshy nose, a bit of beard around the mouth, and a cap. But this new image looks nothing like that. According to the new composite sketch the police are now showing, they are instead looking for a young man, possibly as young as 18 years old, with curly light hair, a slim face, an upturned nose, and completely clean-shaven. He also doesn't have the broad shoulders seen in either the previous composite sketch or in Bridge Guy. And of course, many are confused, and perhaps even worried, because Carter says something else too, aside from presenting the new image. Something that grabs everyone's attention as soon as he starts speaking, and sends a chill through the room.
Directly to the killer, who may be in this room. We believe you are hiding in plain sight. For more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We likely have interviewed you or someone close to you. We know that this is about power to you. And you want to know what we know. And one day, you will.
This is the story of two young girls, of an idyllic, free, and safe place in the American heartland, where something terrible happens. A crime that shakes an entire town and changes it forever. And about how this tragedy is still ongoing, even today. You are listening to The Delphi Murders, a 4-part documentary about the hunt for the man on the bridge. This is the 3rd chapter, Anthony Schatz. The press conference on April 22, 2019, is remarkable in several ways. Most notably, of course, because of the new image and Carter's message that the murderer may be sitting in that room. But there's also something else the police bring up to the crowd. They explain that they'd like to know more about a certain car.
We're seeking the public's help to identify the driver of a vehicle that was parked at the old CPS DCS welfare building in the city of Delphi that was abandoned on the east side of County Road 300 North next to the Hoosier Heartland Highway between the hours of noon to 5 on February 14th, 2017. If you were parked there or know who was parked there, please contact the officers at the command post at the Delphi City building.
Yes, there you hear Doug Carter talking about the car. It was apparently parked near a building that belongs to the Child Protective Services. This building is located by the highway, not far from the hiking trails. It's not impossible that someone could have parked there before heading into the woods, but it's not the most obvious choice either. There are other parking lots that are closer and more hidden. For some reason, which the police haven't explained, they've now gotten a lead on this car. And now they're asking the public if they've seen a car in this location on the day the girls disappeared. But there's a small problem. They never say what kind of car they're looking for, just that it resembles a smart car, one of those tiny cars with only 2 seats. But there's not much to go on, really.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today. This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop last-minute deals now.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
So there was some sort of municipal office of some sort that was near the trail system where people would park their vehicles. So there was a vehicle that was described as looking like a smart car that was parked there, and a couple witnesses said it was parked in like for lack of a better term, oddly. So there wasn't a license plate on the front, parked in a way so that the back license plate was like pushed back, so it couldn't be seen.
This car was parked in such a way that the license plate was not visible. As you no doubt know, it's not easy to remember things you did 2 years ago, especially not if you didn't know back then that it was something you should be paying attention to And it's even harder to sit down and quickly recall whether you saw a car parked at an old house. It's not something most of us would commit to memory. Despite that, the police do get a few tips. But as far as we know, they lead nowhere. After Carter steps down from the podium, another officer takes over. And now he plays more audio from the bridge guy. It's only marginally different from the first clip released 2 years earlier. Here's the new, slightly longer clip. It's just one more word, guys. We don't know why they withheld this one word for 2 years. But now, the gathered officers hope that this new information will trigger someone's memory or make someone realize that someone close to them is actually the bridge guy. Or perhaps even that the man himself will come forward. But that doesn't happen. Once again, it goes quiet from the police after the new press conference in April of 2019. And the people of Delphi don't get any updates about the case moving forward, that there are any new leads, or even that someone has been arrested. Time passes without the police sharing what they know, because there's another thing that doesn't change. People continue to suspect that the investigators have much more information than they are sharing with the public. Or they know that, for instance, the police must know how the girls were murdered. But the general feeling is that they are also sitting on a lot of other information they're not revealing. And the speculation about what it could be and why they're hiding it continues to stir in bars, in living rooms, and of course, online.
One Delphi group on Facebook has 24,000 members, another on Reddit 30,000. Countless smaller groups exist, boasting thousands of members each.
So it's no exaggeration to say this case gets people engaged. And in these forums, there are plenty of people drawing their own conclusions and pointing fingers at who they believe is guilty. And this is not something the police encourage.
You have people who are trying to solve this case with unorthodox methods. It could not only be detrimental to innocent people, but it could harm the case as well.
But then comes the next announcement from the police. It has now been over 2 years since that press conference where we opened this episode, and almost 5 years since Libby German and Abby Williams were murdered. Now, it's December of 2021. Since the last time anyone heard from the police in this case, the coronavirus pandemic has broken out, shut down the entire world, taken the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And now the world is starting to reopen for normal life again. And now the police are issuing an official statement saying they want to contact anyone in the area who has ever had any interaction with the Anthony Shots account on social media.
Detectives are seeking information about the person who created the Anthony Shots profile. Investigators would like any individual who communicated, met, or attempted to meet the Anthony Shots profile to contact law enforcement.
They say there's someone out there using fake personas to persuade girls 12 to 18 to send him explicit images or videos. He had two main accounts that he would do this with. One was a girl where he would pretend to be like a 14 or 15-year-old girl and try to befriend these young girls. The other one was Anthony Shots, which was, the image was of a male model. He had numerous images of this guy. It wasn't just like a photo. I mean, he had like hundreds of photos of this particular guy that he took off of the internet. He would pretend to be very wealthy. He would pretend that he owned lots of sports cars. And then he would try to like get these juvenile girls. Get these girls to send him nude images, try to get their addresses, in theory, try to meet them.
No, of course, Anthony Schatz is not a real person. The pictures of him have simply been stolen from the internet. It's a catfishing account, and the young model who appears in all the profile pictures has nothing to do with the account. The man behind the account is actually someone who looks very different from the model in the photos. A man named Keegan Klein.
This is not meant to like body shame or make fun of anybody's appearance, but Keegan Klein is not like anything even resembling like a handsome male model. In fact, he's like the antithesis of that. He's like a severely overweight man, like probably weighs like 350, 400 pounds. He's very unkempt.
Keegan Klein weighs close to 400 pounds and lives with his dad, Tony. More on Tony in just a moment. But we have to start with the man in the ski mask. Huh? The man with the ski mask, you might be thinking. But nobody's mentioned a man in a ski mask. No, they haven't. Until now. Barely a week after the murders of Abby and Libby, another girl their age is sitting on the bus. Her name is Alexis. It's the evening, and she's on her way home. She's home alone that night. Lately, she's been texting with a really cute guy online. His account is called Anthony Schatz, and he appears to be a charming, successful model. His profile pictures show him posing with several expensive sports cars. He's also pretty forward, and tonight, Alexis has invited him over to her place. She lives in Galveston, which is just a short drive from Delphi. She's a bit nervous about the meeting when she gets off the bus and starts walking home in the dark. But as she nears her house, she notices something. Here's how local news WTHR reports it.
Just a few days after the bodies of Libby and Abby were discovered in Carroll County, another school-age girl gave her address to the Anthony Schatz profile. That girl was getting off the school bus when she says she saw a man in a ski mask looking into her bedroom window.
And there's a fat guy wearing a ski mask, like looking in her window.
No handsome young model ever shows up at Alexis's place. Instead, she spots an overweight man sneaking around outside her window, trying to peep in, wearing a ski mask over his face. Alexis gets suspicious and calls the police. They arrive quickly, but the man in the ski mask runs away before they get there. And while we can't be completely sure, it's pretty likely that the man in the ski mask is the person behind the Anthony Schatz account.
I mean, it's got to be Keegan Klein, right? So we know that he's following up on some of these things in a very creepy, aggressive, predatory way.
As we know, it's Keegan Klein who's behind the account, which Brian just mentioned. Just a few days after this, Keegan Klein and his father go to Las Vegas, where they stay for several weeks. And many young girls were contacted between 2016 and 2017 when the account was active. In some cases, there's been long-term contact between the girls and the account, which they believe belongs to a young, attractive model just a few years older than themselves. There are several instances where Anthony Schatz encourages young girls to send him nude photos and other explicit material. In some cases, like Alexis's, there's an attempt to meet in real life. And another girl in the Delphi area who's been in touch with this account is Libby German.
The person behind Anthony Schatz profile was one of the last communications with Libby German before her murder. And after her death, the Anthony Schatz profile told another person that he was supposed to meet up with Libby, but she never showed up.
Libby texts with the Anthony Schatz profile on the night of February 13th. That is, the same night Abby is staying over at her place, the day before they disappear. And she arranges to meet Anthony Schatz. The date is set for the afternoon of February 14th.
This creepy weirdo, had made plans to, meet her. I mean, the odds of that, this 13-year-old girl was murdered the same day she was supposed to meet a child predator, but they're not involved together, you know?
Police discover Libby's contact with the account early in the investigation, likely after going through Libby's phone, where they find, among other things, the video of the man on the bridge. It doesn't take long to trace the account to Keegan Kline. And by the end of February 2017, a search warrant is actually executed at Kline's home in the small town of Peru. It's only about 40 minutes by car from Delphi.
On February 25th, Indiana State Police, the FBI, and Peru Police served a search warrant at a house in Peru, where Kline was living with his father. Police confiscated a half-dozen phones and electronic devices.
Now, we should be perfectly clear that this search warrant is not about the murder of Abby and Libby. The police are looking for material related to suspicions of child pornography, and they find plenty of it. Channel WTHR reports.
Court records say that Kline admitted to receiving about 100 sexual pictures from underage girls. Police found sexually explicit images and videos of underage girls on several devices. But court documents reveal Kline factory reset one phone 2 days before police arrived and deleted the internet history and social media apps from another phone before turning it over to police 2 days after he was interviewed.
At first, Keegan Kline denies having had any contact with Libby German at all. But he quickly changes his story when he realizes just how much material the police have found. He admits that he spoke with Libby and says they were supposed to meet on February 13th, but that she never showed up.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by FedEx. FedEx knows running a small business is hard enough without the hassle of shipping. That's why there's FedEx One Rate. With FedEx One Rate, you can ship your holiday packages cheaper than the post office for as low as $14.50 for small boxes. Visit FedEx.com/OneRate for details. Exclusions apply. Valid through January 19, 2025. FedEx One Rate. 2-day retail shipping, one flat rate.
This child predator was grooming Libby the very day that she was murdered. He had plans to meet her. So it's just beyond odd.
And in the police interview, Kline tells investigators, "I literally have no clue how that girl died. I don't know anything to do with it. Yeah, that is a weird coincidence that I happened to talk to her, like I get that."
As you hear the Channel 13 reporter say there, Kline understands that it's not very good for him that he had contact with Libby on the same day she died. And if we, for the sake of argument, assume that what Keegan Kline says is true, then this is one hell of an unlikely coincidence. On the same day she's kidnapped and murdered by an unknown man, Libby had arranged to meet a man behind a catfishing account. But as you've probably already understood, the police don't accept what Kline says at face value. At a cursory glance, it's far more likely that Keegan Kline actually did meet Libby near the bridge that day, and that he is the one who murdered her and Abby. But then again, there are some ambiguities with the Anthony Shots account. For starters, there are multiple screens logged into the account. Sometimes the police can see that 2 different devices are logged in and activate on the account at the same time. So, how can they be sure it was Keegan Kline who was talking to Libby?
Like at one point, they're able to find out that 2 different devices in the home are being used at the same time, using the Anthony Shots profile, which makes it even weirder, right? Because then if they want to just arrest Keegan Kline, suspicion of murder, how do they even know Keegan Kline's the one doing this?
Yes, it's hard to know. And this is where we come back to Keegan's father, Tony. Because one theory is that it might be Tony who should be looked at, or perhaps both of them together. In other words, a father and son catfish duo. Tony's build also matches quite well with the image of the Bridge Man, that still image from Libby's phone that the police released several years earlier.
Investigators intensely and repeatedly asked Klein about whether his father had access to his devices at the home in Peru where they lived together.
And Father Tony also has a violent past. He has hit at least one previous girlfriend, and according to unconfirmed reports to the police, he has also threatened both Keegan and his mother with a gun when Keegan was little.
Keegan's father is Jerry Anthony Klein, and he pled guilty to harassment in a 2009 Howard County case. That's where he admitted making repeated sexually explicit phone calls to a woman. He goes by Tony Klein. He also has previous convictions for battery and theft.
No, not exactly the doe-eyed type. Also, Tony's full first name is Anthony, and it's not unlikely that the profile Anthony Schatz got its name from him. So the theory the police are starting to consider now is that it's actually both father and son who together lured the girls into a trap on the bridge.
Tony doesn't look unlike Bridge Guy. You know, Keegan maybe is already waiting there because he told Libby to meet him there. Libby asked Abby to go with her because she's meeting this strange guy and she's nervous. You know, it all makes so much sense that it's bizarre how much sense it makes.
Sure, that theory wasn't very far-fetched at all. But then there's the man in the ski mask. Because it's one thing to only groom young girls online. It's a whole other thing to set up a meeting and then to be looking through their windows. This shows that the man behind the Anthony Schatz account, he's willing to go from words to action.
This plays into a point that he might be somebody that has more nefarious goals in mind, right? Because what's he gonna do? Like, you know, he's a very overweight, unattractive man. These 14-year-old girls are showing up thinking they're meeting a 18-year-old model that drives like a sports car. So like, what's he gonna do? I mean, they're obviously not gonna want to be with him. Is his goal to just get them to meet with him so he can, you know, act out some of his perverted fantasies on them, which might include violence? So he's a good suspect.
So maybe it does show a tendency to act on the impulses behind the catfishing account. But even though there are several indications that Keegan Klein and possibly his father look like very likely suspects, there's no technical piece of evidence linking them to the crime. Now, you might be asking, if Keegan Klein was interrogated as early as 2017, why did the police then release a press release in 2021 asking the public for more information about the account? And like so much else in this case, we don't get answers to that from the police. But of course, there is speculation. And a likely explanation is that they want to see if there is anyone else in Delphi or the surrounding area who met a man behind the Anthony Schatz account, and who might be able to confirm who he is, and whether he behaved in a threatening manner.
I would assume that they're trying to find other victims or potential victims that could be like, you know, he said this to me, or he tried to do this to me, or he met me and then, you know, acted weird with me, or maybe even tried something and I got away. I mean, I think they're trying to corroborate that this is not just like a one-time thing, that this is something that this guy does as a pattern.
But as far as we know, nothing like that is ever found. Neither Keegan Klein nor his dad Tony are ever arrested or suspected of the murders of Abby and Libby. And then, things go quiet again, and the residents of Delphi are once again left without answers, only with more questions. The police are keeping quiet, but this time, it won't be long before the Indiana State Police make their next announcement. You see, already in the fall of 2022, out of nowhere, the police issue a press release. This time, there are no soft-spoken indications or vague suggestions. Here's how local news, Channel 13 News, reports.
Breaking tonight, the first glimpse of answers we've been waiting on for 5 years. Police just announcing an arrest today in the unsolved Delphi murders.
Right now, here at 13 News, we're digging into the man that police arrested, his connection to the case, and also the timeline for when we'll be getting more information from investigators who've been working this case for years.
There's nothing that led up to it. There was nothing that made people think that it was coming. It was just one day after all this time, the police just announced that they had booked a man in connection with the Delphi homicide investigation.
Just like that. Like Brian says, this comes almost like a bolt from the blue for the people of Delphi. After more than 5 years of investigating, the police have finally found and arrested the person they believe is responsible for the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. And the arrested person is not one of the individuals we've discussed earlier in this program. Not the murderous priest, not the suspect from the Colorado case, nor Keegan or Tony Klein. However, it is a man who fits many of the criteria that the Sirius police chief mentioned during the press conference we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Namely, the man in question lives in Delphi. He did long before the murders were committed, and he hasn't moved away since. He works in the town, he's social, and according to all reports, he's described as a nice guy. And maybe that's why so many people can't believe it's true. Because despite everything the police have said, you don't want to believe that something like this is possible. That the murderer isn't some shady figure, an outsider, or a catfishing pedophile, but an ordinary man, just like everyone else in the area.
He would hang out in a bar and right there, I think I saw a photo of him at one point with the first sketch hanging on the wall behind him, while he's sitting in a bar drinking a beer, and everybody knew this dude. He didn't look unlike the bridge guy.
Next time on the Delphi Murders, a seemingly regular guy is arrested for murdering the girls.
When I found out who it was, I never in a million years thought that it would have been him. Not someone so integral to the community and to the Delphi experience.
Police and prosecutors piece together the puzzle to prove his guilt.
Today is not a day to celebrate, but the arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder is sure a major step in leading to the conclusion of this long-term and complex investigation.
But the defense claims that the real culprit is someone completely different.
Julia, in these new documents, Allen's defense team says they have new information that people practicing the pagan religion of Odinism were behind the killings of Abby Williams and Libby German, and not their client Allen.
And the victims' families and the entire town of Delphi wait for answers and for closure.
What do we do next? How do we help? That's what we want to know is how do we help now to make sure we have the right person, to make sure there's a conviction, to come to a total final resolution.
You've listened to the 3rd episode of the Delphi Murders, narrated by me, Jonathan Rollins. The audio clips you've heard in this series are from WTHR, Channel 13, Wish TV, Court TV, Carroll County, Indiana, WLFI TV, CBS, Merritt Street Media, Fox, NBC, WRTV Indianapolis, ABC, and the Indiana State Police. This program is created in collaboration with Brian Whitney. Written and produced by Carl Hager. Sound design and mixing by Christopher Cronender. The executive producer is Tove Freeman Leffler. The program is produced by PodLit. If you like this series, don't forget to follow us and get updates as soon as the next episode, the final in this series, is released. Thank you for listening.